Ladies and gentlemen, we're back with Real Deal Talk, and today I've got Alycia Zymnoch. And I got to tell you, Alycia, I love this name, and I'm very proud that I can pronounce it. Because
I'm actually thrilled you can pronounce it too. It's not an easy one.
It's not. It's not, because it looks like Alycia.
Yes.
And Zymnoch's just crazy in itself, but it's got a nice ring to it.
Yeah, it does. It does. You know, my maiden name was even more difficult, McCullough.
McCullough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but with a bunch of extra letters in there. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So before we get into this real quick, I'm going to get a real quick word. I'm doing this the last two episodes, the word from our sponsor, because I realized, Alycia, that here I am an entire year doing this, and I haven't announced our sponsor once because I was just, what am I thinking? It's our own company, Real Deal Sleep, our own mattress, family business, Real Deal Mattress, Real Deal Sleep, which turned into Real Deal Sleep. Which is paying the bills, which is paying for this beautiful studio. It fronts everything. My amazing, very, very expensive film crew, but they're the best in the business. It's the best money I ever spent. But anyway, Real Deal Sleep. If you're, and by the way, first and foremost, I want to thank everybody watching the show, listening to the show. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that, how much it means to me when people pull me aside and say, I saw an episode and it made a difference in my life. So I want to tell you guys from the bottom of my heart, I thank you so much. But if you're, if you want to support the show, besides subscribing to all of the platforms, hit me with a review. I know it's tough, Alycia, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody can actually, a like is even hard at this point, right? Mm-hmm. But actually writing something is so difficult. So I get the challenge. I feel the pain. The struggle is real. But if you can hit me for 60 seconds on a review, do it. And also, if you want a mattress or know someone needs a mattress, come to Real Deal Sleep, because that's actually how you really directly support the show, by financially. So there you go. Real Deal Sleep, their sponsor. Thank you so much once again, guys. And now back to Alycia Zymnoch. I just wanted to say that again.
You're doing great.
All right. So Alycia, you and I have known each other about a year, you think?
Probably, yeah.
So about a year. And I met Alycia. I was in the Pathfinder program, and at Awaken Church, of course. Everybody knows that's the common theme here. Most of my guests are somehow intertwined with Awaken Church. And she came in, and it said we're having a public speaking symposium kind of thing for a couple hours. And I'm like, I'm all over that. And it was Alycia. And I'm looking at her, and I don't think I had met, I think I'd heard of you, but I don't think I had met you at that point. And I'm always, because I'm fascinated by speakers. Like when people are on stages, when the pastors are speaking, even when the people are doing the message on the beginning, the prayer, whatever it is. So I'm fascinated because I love watching good speakers. And I was like, I couldn't wait to see, is this woman legit? Is she going to teach us something here? And man, I'll tell you what, you are phenomenal. I was blown away that night. And then you blew me away again when you came in and spoke for our class, because in the Pathfinder program, we have every Tuesday night, we have speakers. And Alycia has been our speaker twice, right? Twice for my class.
Yeah.
And each time, I'm telling you, it was literally one of the best classes in each semester that I've been a part of. And I don't know, did you see the video I put up with you with the vanilla ice? Did you see it?
I didn't see
You didn't see this yet?
Shoot, I got to see it.
Even Randy commented.
Oh,
Randy, by the way, is her husband.
Yeah.
Randy Zymnoch. All right, I want to say it again. All right, so I put you.
That's so funny.
I did a compilation of you.
I need to see it.
I did all these boomerangs. I did all these boomerangs in a row.
Oh, that's great.
And I put it to Vanilla Ice, Ice Ice Baby.
So
it's so funny.
I gotta see it.
Go to Real Deal JD, guys, and look back. You'll see her standing there, and there's 10 in a row, and it's to Vanilla Ice.
Oh, that's great.
And what I did in the context of it, I said, listen, if you want to pull in your audience and engage your audience when you're public speaking, you got to be animated. You got to move around a little bit. You got to animate. And there's nobody that I've seen speak that exemplifies that. Because you got to see this, because you were literally over here. You were dancing. You were doing this. You were doing that.
I know. I have fun with it. It's like I feel like I'm performing. I feel like a dancer again, when I'm on stage.
And on that note, Alycia's background is you were in beauty pageants, right? Mm-hmm. And we're going to get into that story, but I just want to get a little bit teaser for everybody here. And what it turned into was a very cool niche business, which is now, it's called Win a Pageant. Mm-hmm. So she helps women that are going into beauty pageants.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, and again, we're going to come back full circle and dig deep into that because I'm fascinated by that alone. We're fascinated by the fact that you've got one child, can we announce it?
Yeah.
And another one on the way.
Yes.
She's got a tiny little baby.
Baby bump.
Percolating in there.
Yeah, that's right.
Simmering nicely at this point. So Real Deal Talk, the first time that it's publicly announced to the world.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. Real Deal Talk. Zymnochs times 2. Actually,
That's
times
right.
4 now.
That's right.
All right. So, all right, Alycia. All right. So now let's go back. Where were you born and raised?
A small town in Pennsylvania, Cochranton. And it was... Looking back on, at the time, being raised in a little tiny town, I thought, this is like, come on, there's a big world out there, And
You even thought that when you were young?
Yes, yes. I remember when I think, I always knew that there was something greater that God was calling me to in terms of influence and in terms of impact. And so in my small town, I graduated with under 70 students in my graduating class. So it wasn't, I know there's a lot of other people from much smaller towns, but for me, it felt like, gosh, where are the opportunity? Like how am I going to... But I was also a big fish in a small sea. And so I grew a lot of great confidence from, being on the cheerleading team and being one of the best on the, 12 of us or whatever, and then competing in my first pageant and sort of accidentally winning just because, it was just like somebody was going to have to win and it kind of shook out and it was me. And so growing up in this small town, my dad, his family line had tons of land and really kind of owned the town with the land that they had. And so my, grandma lived across the pond and, across the street from us was my uncle. And then across the road from him was our cousin. And then up the road and we kind of lived on this hill in, with tons and tons of acreage and really a beautiful, looking back now, realizing that is what allowed me to flourish and to develop the confidence that I was going to then need for, the things that I now do. So,
so you said that you realized that you wanted to make an impact. Like at what age did that come to you?
Well, I think it was more of a, okay, so I was a middle child.
Okay, yeah.
And you may be familiar with there were 3 of us in the family I grew up in. Yep. And then I have an older sister from my dad's first marriage, but she didn't live with us regularly. So I was the middle child of the 3 of us that grew up together. And there's psychologists may say that there's like this middle child syndrome where they tend to be like the performer and the wanting the attention and sort of they're not the oldest, they're not the youngest. And I had that, I was attracted to a microphone and I always wanted to be on stage and be a dancer and things like that. And at about age 9, I wrote a letter to Hollywood, like, "Dear Hollywood," kind of sharing my, best hits. Like, I've been dancing since I was 3 years old. I've got 6 years of dance experience. And, I'm able to fake an English accent, and like things like this that, I wanted to be a star. And so, I don't even know how I sent this letter to where, but of course they never wrote back. But it was at that age that I was like, and I had sort of a wanderlust for Los Angeles and for Hollywood and for the stars and things like that. And of course now I do not, through a series of events that led me to LA and on beyond it. But yeah, so from a young age, I just wanted to be on stage and wanted to be sort of in the limelight. And at the time, it was, I believe, selfish desire, but now I think God planted that to allow me to chase what the skill set that he needed me to gather in order to be able to have the impact that I'm able to have now.
And so let me ask you this. You must have had somebody that you aspired to be or that inspired you. Like what made you, did you see somebody on TV that was a dancer, an actress? Were you into movies? Like what, how did you?
Talk shows.
Yeah,
talk shows. Yeah, so I was really into, when I was a kid, Rosie O'Donnell was like the big talk show host at that time that I recall.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember, and I had a film that I made. So, we had one of those old cameras that you would put a VHS tape in and close it and then hit the record button. And I think you had to hit record and play at the same time or something like this.
That's right.
And anyway, so I set up this camera and pretended I was interviewing myself. And so I'd sit on one side and I was the host and I would interview myself. And this was probably around that same age, like under 10, I would say. And then I would hop to the other chair and I would put a boa around my neck and I would have my English accent and I would answer the question as though I was now the guest. And then I'd take the boa off and I'd sit on the other side and I had this videotape of myself doing this. And shortly after that, my family, and it was just play. I was playing. I was just a kid and that's how I was playing. And then shortly after, my family found the videotape, and they're, because they're probably looking for a free tape, like what tape can we record the next event over, whatever, family outing or something. And so they played this, and I remember walking into the living room while they're playing this film, and they're giggling at it. And now I know it was so cute, I'm sure. It was like, oh my gosh, look at what she's doing. This is hilarious. She's even like acting this whole thing out. Oh, there's her English accent. But at the time, it felt like they were laughing at me. And so it sort of stole the dream a bit.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And it kind of like made me feel like, so I took the tape and recorded over it because I was so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed that it was play, it was exploration. It was just me kind of like having fun and pursuing, it's like version 1 of anything that we ever do. Version 1 is not our best thing, And so it's just version 1. We're just practicing, we're playing. But I felt exposed and I felt like, oh my gosh, they're like seeing this piece of me. And so I kind of like hid it and was like, never mind. I'll do something else then,
So but didn't they tell you like that was so cute? We loved it.
Of course. But a kid's mind, you're fragile. And it was a dream. It was in its infancy, a dream in its infancy is easiest to kill. Anything in its infancy is easy to kill because it doesn't have any strength,
Yeah.
And so at that time, that's where it was at for me. So yes, now looking back, of course, I know they were like, no, honey, it's cute. Look, you did such a great job. But walking into the room and seeing my family members sort of giggling at it, the initial reaction was, oh my gosh, like they're laughing at me.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine if we still had that tape?
I know. I want it now so badly. It's probably hilarious.
But would we even be able to play it? Like, I mean,
on a VHS, who knows?
Isn't it crazy? Like
how things have changed.
So, so talk shows. That's where it wasn't like, were you movie buff? Did you no,
I don't even remember like what movies I ever watched as a kid. It was mostly talk shows. And so I'm sure I saw, like the, movie clips that they may show, I'm sure they were interviewing at that time. They weren't interviewing TikTok stars, they were interviewing movie stars. True. And so, that was, I'm sure, the thing that I was probably seeing pieces of that. And I connected it that, they're, and then the red carpet, for the awards shows, things like that. So I think that was more of the draw.
And so you've mentioned a few times that God was guiding you here, God was guiding you there. So I'm going to assume here, but let me, let's dig a little bit deep on this here. Your family, your parents were Christians from day one. You grew up in a Christian household.
Yes.
You were in church every Sunday.
Yes.
Give me that scenario.
Yeah, it was. My dad was a great spiritual leader, and my mom had grown up with a little bit more of a religious background, but also knowing Christ.
Yeah.
And when I say religious, meaning like there were a lot more rules around the engagement with Christianity.
Yep.
So you would dress up for church and things like that, but it was a rule-based thing.
Got it.
My dad was phenomenal in terms of how he internalized biblical principles. And so he would read the word, it would come to life to him, and he would personalize it and then share it with us in ways that made sense, And so I think that helped my mom grow into the woman that she became, and probably was even before I met her, or knew her as a child even,
Yeah.
And, but yes, I'm so grateful for that upbringing, because it set a standard of what was right and wrong. It set a precedent for how I would see myself as an achievement. I think it helped me to see, like, this is the standard. This is what you will do. And so, for instance, when we were young, yes, we went to church every week, but not because, you got to go to church, but really because, like, we were home, and when we're home, we're going to go to church, and that's just what you do. It wasn't so religious that when we went on vacation, it wasn't like my family was like, oh, now we're on vacation, we have to find a church around here because this is what we do. But, we didn't do that. Instead, we were just like, we wanted to stay plugged into our community, and we knew that it was important to be planted in a church community. And I'm so grateful for that. And I remember my dad would make us dress up, but not as you have to dress up to go to church, but out of respect. This is God's house we're going to.
Yeah.
We're going to dress up because we're out of respect for God. Just like if you're going to go to grandma's 90th birthday party, you're going to dress up out of respect for grandma. Yeah.
Now, did you go to regular public schools, Christian schools?
Public school, yep. Small town, public school, yep. So we did, but my community was very much a Christian community.
Oh, really?
And so it was, thank goodness, many of us, almost everybody in our community went to a church. Maybe there were 3 or 4 churches probably in our town, and everybody pretty much went to one of them or felt associated in some way with one of them. My church had a big youth group, and so a lot of kids would come, even if they didn't go to church on Sunday, they would often come to the Wednesday night youth group and things like that.
Got it. And now you had mentioned, and forgive me here because I'm trying to get the details of you had a sister.
Yep, older sister, and then older sister from my dad's first marriage.
From his first marriage.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so when he came into your mom's life, he had a daughter.
That's right. Who was still little. I think she was still little at the time, maybe under 5 even.
And I'm assuming she was going back and forth between the...
That's right.
Okay, got it. Okay, got it. And so then you... with your mom and your dad, were they together the whole time?
Yes.
Great relationship.
Beautiful.
Set a good example.
Very much.
Talk to me about the relationship that your parents that kind of had an impact on you.
Yeah. So they had a beautiful marriage. It was not perfect. And that's what I like about it, because it helped us to see, I think as kids, we saw, when you're like little, your parents are everything, your dad is, no one's stronger than your own dad,
right.
No one solves problems like mom, nobody can give a hug. Like, it's like they are everything. And as we grew until probably like junior high school, we started to realize like, oh, they are actually human. Like they have actual flaws that they're working through as well. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to see those flaws in them because they worked them out. And I think that a lot of times I hear a lot of stories from others who either their parents put on sort of a show that they were not, that no person is perfect, right? So like they're either putting on a show of like, well, we have to like make this look good for the kids. Like we have to at least, for the kids. And then I have a friend in particular who went her whole life thinking her family was just the, most delightful, whatever. And then as soon as she went to college, they got a divorce and she was shocked. And here they'd had all kinds of problems that they'd been hiding from their kids and weren't working through it. And my mom and dad, again, not perfect by any means, but loved Jesus like so much that they were gonna work on it. And they were like, we are figuring this out. Like this, they would go through tough seasons and then figure it out. And so I loved being able to witness that and being able to watch it because it's serving me now in my own marriage,
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was definitely, I'm so grateful for that they, we would like, even like little things, we would be on vacation or something, and then there would be a tiff, but we'd be staying in a pop-up camper. And so it's like, you got to figure this tiff out before we all get back in this pop-up camper, and they would, so it was things like that. That was just, it was a beautiful witness of what God is actually doing to heal two people as they walk together.
And so I'm really glad that you brought that up, because this is something that's come to me and my wife Rachel recently when we went to the marriage getaway with the church. And I love what the message that's happening lately. And I just heard it recently. I don't remember who was saying it, or one of the pastors, but just what you just said. We all think that maybe, okay, let's not argue in front of the kids. Let's not be angry in front of the kids. And it's actually, no. It's actually okay as long as you work it out.
Yes.
Because then you're showing them that, hey, arguments can happen, disagreements, but then we work it out.
Yes.
Right?
That's right. Yeah.
And that you just said it again.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's a difference when two people are fighting in, like in a marital situation, and they are not fighting fair. And I think that's what you don't want the kids to see.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do that even. No one wants to do that, because no one wants to be fought unfairly, in terms of meaning like name calling or dragging up stuff from the past or whatever, But I think that there is a fair way to disagree, even having heated conversation, and work it out. And if both parties are willing to say, I want to see your side, but I also want you to see my side, and then you can share those two things, and then come together and say, okay, we're in this together. So now how do we take each of our sides and each of our value systems and the things and now how do we blend that together? And I think what we don't want others to see, and that we don't want to do, is to do the fighting unfairly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm laughing over here as you're speaking. I'm laughing because I'm thinking about arguments that Rachel and I have gotten into. Yeah. And because I'm at the point where I don't want to go into the other room. Like I'm sitting here at the kitchen counter. Let's just get the kids are here. So what?
Yeah.
We're gonna yell a little bit, and so I'm laughing, thinking about it. Do we really want to stop this? Go in another room.
Right.
and then Jacqueline will be like, Daddy, what were you guys yelling? Why were you guys yelling at each other? I'm like, no, we just had a disagreement, and now we worked it out.
That's right.
Oh, okay. What I mean?
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think it does make kids still feel safe. And again, ages of children probably matters a lot too. A 3-year-old's going to react very differently than a 12-year-old is going to react, because they can reason differently. You know. But and the topic, of course, so it's not a hard and fast answer. But
correct.
But I do think that it's not a necessity to exactly like you said, to leave the room and then come back and just feel like everything's hunky dory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as it's not too
exactly.
Like you said, the topic matters.
Topic matters. That's right. Yeah.
The words that are coming out.
That's right. Exactly.
So we don't want to get too crazy here in front of the kids.
Right.
All right. So let's get back here. Now, give me any stories that you can tell me from grade school, high school, that had an impact on you. That maybe your first time, being a cheerleader, the first time on a stage, the first time on where you felt like a big moment in your life where you gained the most confidence, like something that happened, like an event when you were a kid that just gave you so much confidence. And then, you know what, I'm going to move forward with this dream. Yeah.
Okay. So I've got a great one, actually.
Oh, good.
It's kind of long, but I think we got lots of time.
We got time.
Yeah.
My videos are like, here we go.
Yeah, exactly. So, so when I was in elementary school, I started dancing when I was 3 years old. And my sister, who was 15 months older than me, I kind of just followed in her shadow. So my mom was like, I'm going to put my girls in dance. My sister was probably 4 and I was maybe almost 3 or something. And so it was like, well, we just did things together. So she let me go to the dance class too. And I loved it. And then I continued dancing, ballet, tap, jazz, kind of the usual things all the way through. And about 7th grade, I realized all my friends from school were not in my dance class. They were in sports. And I was like, I really want to in 7th grade, you're trying to figure your life out, trying to be cool and stuff and wanting community. And so I said, I'm going to stop dance for my 7th grade year and I'm going to do basketball with my friends. And I was a totally terrible basketball player, but I loved it. It was fun because it was with my friends and it was just... But I realized they were taking basketball because it was their thing.
Yeah.
It was very serious to them. They wanted to win. They wanted to, they wanted to be serious in practice and stuff. And for me, it was more of like, that's how I felt about dance. But for me, basketball was just like the fun, like, let me just try this for a year, So anyway, I wasn't great at it. I really didn't care to be great at it. But I just enjoyed it while I was in it. Well, so then the next year, I'm going to try to do both. So I went back into some of my dance classes, stuck with the thing, added volleyball. I think I started doing volleyball around like 9th grade or something. In 10th grade, I was no longer doing basketball because at some point along the way, they asked me to like be the treasurer. Because I was so bad. They were like, we need to give her some position here. Like, so she stays on the team.
On the team?
Maybe she'll be the treasurer. I was like, sure, I'll be the treasurer because I didn't care,
Oh
I did not care. So anyway, I go back to my dance world and we're having a great time. So in I believe it was 10th grade. So in 9th grade, I was a starter on the volleyball team because I was tall. I was strong because I was a dancer. I, again, really was like, wow, you guys are taking this a little too serious here, you know. But I played. It was fun. And then in 10th grade, there was a girl who was a 9th grader who came up who was phenomenal. This girl was she was a absolute athlete from like day one.
Yeah.
And she was spectacular. So she took my place in starting. And then I basically didn't play at all. And again, I didn't care. But a lot of the other players would have cared very much if that had been them. I just wanted to be on the bus rides and play at the practice. And I just kind of wanted to be involved. Well, it happened where there was a game that was between my high school, our team, and our high school rivals. And the team that I was on was phenomenal. They would go to states. They would win states some years, our volleyball team, state championships. And so this particular year where I was not a starter, I hardly played in any games at all. Maybe they would stick me in if they just needed to give somebody a break in the back or something. It was very rare. Well, so there was a girl on the opposing team who, and I forget what they called her now, but it was something like the Beast or something. Like this chick was like built like a brick wall, strong, and her serve would come in and like crush you. It was like unbelievable. And during a game or like a match change, my coach accidentally put my number in to play instead of the good 9th grader.
Oh, no.
And so I'm cold on the bench. I've been sitting here for match after match after match. It's like neck and neck, and here we are. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And again, like I didn't want it bad enough. So like I should not have been on the floor. And she accidentally puts me in. And with regret, I see her be like, wait, no, like she had already turned in a slip of who her starters were. So I had to get in to start the game.
Oh, gosh.
And she looks at me and gives me this like disappointed, like, okay, get in there. Like, you just have to. And I knew in her head, as soon as the play went, she would pull me out.
Yeah.
And I would be glad about that.
I'd be glad.
I didn't want to play about that. I didn't want to play and get this girl. Like, I'm like, holy cow. Okay, so this girl fires up a serve.
Oh, no.
The volley goes from our side back to her side. Now, I'm playing in like against the net in the front on the left-hand side. And I was against the girl who she would always hit. She would hit, and she would hit like right down the line.
Yes.
And it was like fierce, you know?
Like a fireball.
Yes. And so I'm like, well, whatever. Here I am. I'm cold off the bench. I got to just like pretend like I know what I'm doing here, I guess. So so she serves, the ball goes to our side. It goes back to their side. And I'm like basically supposed to block now. So I'm like, well, whatever. So I closed my eyes and jumped as high as I could with my hands in the perfect wide position as best as I could, with my eyes closed. This girl hit it into my hands and I blocked it.
Oh my God.
And literally the crowd, and I mean, the crowd, it was a small little high school town, but it felt like I felt like I was in the Olympics, like it was like, they were all like so excited. My coach was like jaw dropped. Like she could not believe that I did that. And so now we have the serve. So of course I'm like telling my coach, like, okay, take me out. She's like, no, you're on fire. You stay in. And I was like, what? Like, no. Anyway, so the next volley, I screwed something up and she finally pulled me out. But I was like, but that one moment, I was like, this is great. It was so funny.
Oh my gosh.
So,
was the other girl shocked?
Yeah. the whole place was shocked because they were like, this girl's an accident coming in here. So after that, she started tipping over me because I think she thought like, oh, maybe
you're
she's
this
a secret
massive
weapon.
blocker.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I think I just probably jumped crooked or something. I don't know. I had my eyes closed. I have no idea what happened. But anyway, it was a funny moment because what I realized then is that the confidence that I lacked was made up for in the simple, like, dumb bliss of like, Alycia, just close your eyes and jump. And I thought, you know what? If we approached things that were scary with, instead of saying, no, coach, take me out. Oh, I twisted my ankle. I got to get out of here. But instead with, just close your eyes and jump.
Yeah.
Just imagine what could happen,
Yeah.
you know? Even in a thing that you just like, you know, really, I could not have cared any less, but I felt embarrassed because I wasn't supposed to be in the game. Everybody knew it. It was kind of like, oh, you know, but I just thought like, what a cool little God wink that he's like, look, girl, I got you. Like you could have your little moment. And,
Oh my
you know,
gosh.
so then later, I believe it was even later in that season, or maybe it was a future season where at my dance academy, I had an opportunity to become an instructor while I was in high school teaching hip hop dance classes.
Wow.
And so I ended up in the beginning of a season, I had to tell my volleyball coach, you know, hey, I'm not going to finish the season. I'm going to take this other opportunity where I can teach classes on Saturday mornings. So I wouldn't be able to make practices and I'm going to have to choreograph and all this stuff. So I won't be able to do it. And I remember her disappointment was similar to the disappointment that she had in her face about me when she accidentally stuck me in the game. And it did not bother me at all because I was like, you know what? When she put me in the game and I wasn't supposed to be there, it made me so sad because you want to make your coach happy. You want to perform. You want to, you don't want to be the disappointment. And I felt like I didn't even do this. You made this mistake. I'm not, but so then it felt so good to be able to tell her, hey, look, I'm going to chase this dream I have, this huge opportunity. And instead of her being like, wow, Alycia, yes, like I would tap dance and practice and stuff. And I was not a volleyball player, like at all. Yeah. And so instead of her saying, wow, Alycia, like this is awesome for you. You should go pursue that. Like this, I was not going to volleyball like scholarship or something, this was a great opportunity for me. But the look of disappointment on her face, and it made me feel like, you know what? That look of disappointment is something I will see many times in my life. And I can't let it bother me. I can't let it be the thing that makes me change my actions or my attitude. And I remember just very confidently be like, well, this is how it is. So she tried to talk me into staying.
Really?
And I do not know why. I honestly have no idea why.
That was my next question is,
I should ask her.
What was the disappointment?
I have no idea why. I don't know if she needed a certain number of people.
She needed a treasurer.
Yeah, she needed a treasurer. Yeah, exactly. I mean, okay, let's be honest. I brought great morale to the team. I know that I did that. Yeah, so there had to have been some other, value that I brought to the team other than on the court, but maybe it was going to make the team an uneven amounts, and now there won't be enough people to do the drills. Who knows, But anyway, but it was a great opportunity to realize, like, follow the thing that is your opportunity, and don't let other people be the ones that decide that for you.
Like follow your heart, right? Like if it's in your heart, follow it.
Yeah, and I think it's like heart, and also I think that it's your calling, So like I do think that there are things that God places for us that aren't necessarily in our heart, and yet God's still calling you to it. And so you need to do that thing, even if you don't think it's the thing that's going to pan out properly. But it's like if he told you to do the thing, you need to do the thing.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I love that. All right. So this is high school now. Yeah. Now, what happened when you was college? Like, okay, you got to go to college. Were parents like, okay, you got to go to college, got to do this? It
was more of an assumption I would go to college.
Yeah.
My whole family was educated, many with advanced degrees. So it was sort of like that was what you did next.
Yep.
And I'm still grateful for that experience, that was an assumption, because I think it would have been a really difficult decision to make at that time had it not been assumed for me.
Right.
And I had to decide, you don't have to go. You could, But honestly, I had no clue what I was even going to do. So I was like, I don't know. I'll just go be a teacher, because my family was a family of teachers. And so I thought, well, I don't know, maybe that's what I'll do. But I ended up starting a major, communications major, and one of the first classes that you take is radio. And I thought,
And what college?
Westminster College. It's a small private, like Christian school in Pennsylvania.
Gotcha.
And so they have a great communications program. So that's kind of why I agreed. That my dad had attended there, and it was close to our home. So I thought, it's a beautiful, beautiful campus and lovely people. So I had a phenomenal experience, lived on campus, great friends, had wonderful on-campus experience, everything. I absolutely loved it. You know, college is very different now, so I don't know that I would want my daughter to have a college experience, because it's so different now. But for me, it was a wonderful experience. But during that time, I think I changed my major. I think I had like 15 majors.
Are you serious?
Yes. I wanted to try things, and the only way to get in as a freshman or a sophomore, the only way to get into the class was, theater 101 was to be a theater major. And so I was like, well, all you do to change your major is you walk into the thing and you scratch off a piece of paper and you add the new one. That was it. And that was how you change your major. So every time I just wanted to take another class, I would just scratch off the major and change my major. So I did this many times: public relations, communications, Spanish, and ended up transferring to a state school because I was like, this is getting very expensive, and I don't know that I'm going to end up with a degree that's going to be able to pay for all this.
Right.
So I transferred to a state school, Slippery Rock, and landed then in education, because it was easy. It was like going to get me in and out of there fast. So that was fine. Got my undergrad degree, and then ended up going to get an advanced degree because I didn't want to be a teacher at that level. And
so, but your family were all teachers?
Yes. Yep. All in education. So mom was a kindergarten teacher most of her career, even into, even all the way up to retirement. Yeah. My dad started as a special education teacher, and then became administration. So was a principal and things like that. And then, grandparents, both teachers. Wow. And my grandfather was an agricultural teacher. So family of teachers.
And so, what about the LA dream? Because you'd still been dreaming about LA, right? Was it still going on?
Yeah. So I originally, when I got into communications at this school, they were like, you got to start in radio. That's kind of where everybody cuts their teeth. You got to start in radio. And I was like, great, I can do radio. Yeah. And so every time I turned on the mic, radio is basically and I would do this at school, that you would have like an internship where you'd play to be the DJ from this hour to that hour at school. And so I'd like, click the music and you'd hear the music. And the whole time I'd be thinking, all right, here's what I'm going to say when I get off, And then, you had to read the weather or something. So then I'd get in and read the weather, and I'd make it all fun and read the weather cool, and then, okay, and then next song. And it was for every 3-minute song, I was it felt like 3 hours. I was like, I just want to turn the microphone on and say stuff, and tell stories. And so then I had a news class where we got to make kind of a news package and learned how to do that and sound bites and things. And I was like, that's a little bit better because at least I'm reporting, I'm saying more stuff, But then it was literally somebody.
Did people love listening to you? Did they see you in the halls be like, hey, that was great, or no?
I don't think no. I never got. I don't think anyone listened to the radio at college, the college radio. It was a pretty small school. I don't think people were really into it like that.
Oh my god!
And so it was kind of I was just learning how to do it, And then they said in some, workshop or something that I went to, they were saying how usually you start in radio where you make about $25,000 a year. And I was like, wait, what? That's less than a teacher. And I hate this equally to elementary school teaching. Why wouldn't I just be a teacher and make at least $10,000 more a year, So instantly I was like, that's out. That is not going to happen for me. So I was like, I gotta find something else to do. So then that's when I was exploring a bunch of majors. And I, at the time, kind of just figured, I just have to get enough credits to graduate and then I'll figure it out,
Yeah.
So anyway, I ended up, when I transferred, got the elementary certification, went to, you have to do substitute teaching. So I did that for a semester. And I remember my substitute supervisor, so she would have been the actual third grade teacher, or maybe it was fourth grade or something, that I was not substitute, student teaching under. And I overheard her tell a colleague that I was not cut out to be a teacher.
Oh, gosh.
Like, oh, she's so into, because I was a good teacher. I was a very good teacher, but I was theatrical with everything.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make everything a game, and I wanted to make everything like arts and crafts, and I wanted to just play, and so so she was like, no, this girl will never be a teacher. She'll never, and I was good. I was a straight A student. Like, I was excellent at what I was doing, but she saw what I did not yet see, which was the entrepreneurial vision of myself.
Yeah.
And I think, overhearing that, I was like, she's so right, and I was into pageants and things at that time. And her comment was, she's just into pageants. She'll never be a teacher. She's just and she was meaning it to be, like a negative thing.
Right. Yeah.
But of course, what we know now is that was a very positive thing, So, yeah.
So, okay. So you were already into pageants at this point?
Yeah, I started in pageants when I transferred schools. So I was at Westminster College until sophomore year, and then transferred schools to Slippery Rock. And at that transition time, I had not really gotten into dance. I really wanted to dance in front of a big, big audience. And there was a pageant in my local town that it was held in a grandstand that seated at our fair. It was at a county fair, and the grandstand seated something like 2,000 people or something like this. And I was like, wow, that would be epic if I could perform in front of an audience of 2,000 people. Wouldn't that be cool? So I joined the pageant, and they have a talent portion, and I start working on my talent every day, and was able to perform. And about a week before, I didn't want to win the pageant. I wasn't doing it to win the pageant. I just wanted to dance in front of that.
I was going to say your talent was probably
audience.
dance, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
And so about a week before the pageant, I was like, I called my sister and I was like, Amy, I think I might actually win this thing. What happens if I accidentally win this? Like, I don't want to win. And should I quit? I was like, should I just drop out of this pageant? Because if I win, that's a whole year of community service and stuff. And it's like, I don't have time for this. And I don't know how I'm going to fit this in. And it's a lot of work. And you got to do this and this and this. And she goes, oh, this is, horrible wisdom, which she did not have about pageantry, but it was brilliant at the time.
Yeah.
She said, oh, don't worry. If you win, you can always just give up the crown the next day. And I'm thinking like, oh, that's a great idea. You're totally right. I'll just tell them, never mind, the next day. Well, then about 3 days later, I decided like, no, I do want to win this thing. And it was like my competition just came out roaring, And so I ended up kind of getting, 3 days before the pageant or 4 days before the pageant, getting more serious about it. Like, okay, now I really want to get focused and stuff. I did end up winning that pageant. I still don't think it had a whole lot to do with my preparation strategy. It was really just more of somebody needed to win.
Yeah.
And so, I happened to be up there naturally based on my natural abilities. And it started for me this like absolute delight for service.
Yeah.
And for helping other people, and for really, because like I mentioned previously, always before, my desire for the limelight was ego.
Right.
It was, I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to be.
Yes.
And when I finally got this position, I was now like, wow, this position allows me to serve other people. It's giving me a platform that I can actually influence and draw people in and kind of like make other people feel great.
Wow.
And that was a really, really cool experience. And then I did well. And so I continued competing. And that was in my 20s, like early 20s.
Yeah.
And so continued competing, realized that when you won a pageant in your local community, you got to know everybody and everybody got to know you. So it was a great opportunity to meet local business owners and to really network with like the mayor of the town and to get to know other women that were competing and stuff. So in moving from Pennsylvania and then moving to Illinois for graduate school, I competed there again and got to know the community there. In California, when I first moved to California, competed again, got to know it again. So it was a cool hobby that allowed me to learn about my community.
Yeah, and I love that, how it turned into, maybe I don't want to do this. And then, because like you said, you're doing it for yourself.
Right.
Ego,
That's exactly
ego.
right.
But then you're forced to serve others when you win.
Yes.
And that just sent your whole life on a different trajectory,
yes,
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love this story. It's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So, by the way, have you ever thought of having your own podcast?
I have a podcast.
Oh,
yes.
Gosh, I didn't even.
Yeah. So
Forgive
Win a
me.
Pageant podcast.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I started
I just
the
meant
podcast.
like, so is it all about pageants?
It is. It's all about pageants. Yep.
Because I think you should also do
Yeah.
what I'm doing here.
Yeah. We do some interviews, and pageants, I think there's a huge misconception that pageantry really is about the makeup and the hair and all of that. And those things are a part of it in a similar way to how, walking the red carpet is a part of being a movie star.
Right.
But the movie star part is the part that's the hard work, studying your lines, trying them in 12 different ways, getting into character, all of that. And for a pageant woman, that's the stuff people don't see. It's really doing the digging, the personal development that's necessary in order to set oneself aside in order to pursue a larger purpose of service. And so the podcast shares strategies that my podcast, Win a Pageant, shares strategies about and really makes it very step by step.
Yeah.
So pageantry, the way that it's scored is extremely subjective. It's not like a volleyball game where just the ball hits the ground and boom, it's over. Like, okay, that's side out and move on. They get a point, whatever. But instead, it's subjective. So, and beauty really is in the eye of the beholder. And so when what I train my contestants to do is to understand the psychology of decision making. And so when they are wanting to be chosen, what is it that the people in the audience and in the judges panel really are looking for to select? And it has more to do with the judge themselves than with the contestant.
Right.
And so it's about, instead of holding the mirror to one's self, we have to hold the mirror to the judge themselves and help us draw out the best in them. We love people who draw out the best in us.
Yes,
that's attractive, you know? Like when you feel like that's a beautiful thing when they are drawing out the best in you. And so that's what I train my ladies to do. And so it's the podcast really is more strategic and more about, the mindset and personal development aspects.
And so go ahead. Let's pitch this a little bit here. Meaning, like, can anybody benefit by listening to that podcast if they're looking to, like, give me how other applicable, practical ways that your podcast, even though it says Win a Pageant.
Right.
Like, could we say Win at Life? Could you even change that?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
Meaning
absolutely.
for somebody that's coming that's not going for a pageant.
That's right. Yeah. You know what's interesting, JD, is like for the last, so I've been now pageant coaching for over, I don't know, it's probably been 15 years or so, and only started the online, winapageant.com only started about 2015 when my podcast first launched. That's when I got real serious about, okay, I'm going to do this full time now. And what I found was that pageantry attracts, it's a hobby.
Yeah.
It attracts women who are into personal development. They want to grow themselves personally, usually for the long term, even though pageant preparation sometimes is 3 months. Sometimes women join a pageant, 3 months later they have the pageant, and then they move on to life. But it attracts women who are into personal development. They want to grow. They want to step into a bigger calling. It attracts women who have a calling and a skill set for influence, which is not everybody, but these women know they're not afraid of a microphone. They're not afraid of stepping into the spotlight. And they know that there's a skill set that they need to learn in order to make that doable. So it attracts that type of woman, and it attracts a woman who's not afraid to serve. And I think that's the thing that those three characteristics of women, and I think it's particularly women, those three characteristics are not always found in men, but those three characteristics in women is extremely powerful because it allows, when done within authentic femininity, it allows her to step into a place of influence beyond what a lot of other places would allow her to do. And so I just think that it's so yes, it is everything about pageant prep really is about life preparation.
Yeah.
My book, my tagline is pageant coaching for on stage and in life. And a lot of our reviews, I when you were sharing about reviews, it's so important to leave podcast reviews, like for listeners that are listening right now, to leave a review on this pod. It is so important because it helps the host to direct the conversations, because then you'll get that feedback on your reviews and you'll be like, oh, wow, this is the thing that's helping that people love. Yeah. This is where I'm going to take this show, and I found that too, that people in their reviews were writing like, this is something I'm having my granddaughter listen to this with me, or, and I'm thinking, your granddaughter, like, well, how old is she? 8? And so then how old are you? I'm like, this is cool. Like, these people are not even ready to like step on a stage, but they're attracted to it for the wisdom. So my listeners listen to my podcast year round, season after season, because they know it's not just the strategies for their competition period. It's strategies for life.
God, I'm so glad we got on this.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's pretty cool.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. So, what was I going to say? Okay. Oh, average age of your clients. Mm-hmm. What is it? I would say it's around 40. 40?
So 40 years old. Yes. So I know it's shocking, right?
Yes.
To think that, like, wait a second. So there's pageants
40. For
40-year-old women. Yes. And in fact, they are so well positioned for influence because of wisdom that they've gathered. So pageantry, there are 2, maybe 3 really big pageants that attract a lot of media attention. Miss America and Miss USA, Miss Universe. Miss USA and Miss Universe owned by the same organization. Those 3 are sort of like, they've been around for decades and they sort of got pageants started on the map. In the last probably 20 or so years, there have been hundreds of other pageant systems that have popped up all around the world, and mostly concentrated in the United States. And they all have many of them have similar titles. The Miss United States of America, and the Miss United States World, and Dr. Senior World, and Dr. Senior America, and Mrs. America, and Mrs. US. And, they're all very similar. But they have different scoring processes that value differing things. And so Dr. World, for example, is only for women that have received their doctoral degree.
Wow.
And it's cool that there's a whole pageant just for that. There's senior pageants that are just for women over a certain age. Petite pageant, Petite USA and Petite Universe that are just for women 5, 6 and under. And there's Miss Wheelchair USA. There's a pageant, and this is the cool thing. This really only just started within the last 20 years or so, where pageants started to become, because of this shift in pageants used to be, which the Miss America system has started the shift in this. Miss USA and Universe still sort of hold this truth of beauty only. Right. And there are other pageants too where they say just score the most beautiful girl. We don't really care what she says. We don't really care what she's doing. Just score the most beautiful girl. Those are pageant systems that we typically do not work with, because I don't want to coach a girl just because I'm not an expert in beauty. I'm not going to give you plastic surgery to make you the most beautiful girl to win this pageant. It's not worth it. But so those do still exist. But in the last 20 years or so, I really believe since social media, we are now seeing the faces of many different people that aren't necessarily the most beautiful, like we would see on the red carpet always. Now we're seeing real people that have actual wisdom and have true influence and have this opportunity to actually change the trajectory of other people's lives, no matter how they look. And so that is what is now really being honored. And what I found was that when women start to think about pageantry, they think about all the things they see. The makeup, okay, I got to fix my hair, I got to get my makeup right, I got to have a beautiful wardrobe, I need to lose millions of pounds, whatever. They think all these things, which is so untrue, because right now the way that people as judges value others and want to choose others is less about how beautiful they are. When someone is, there's that song that says everybody harbors a secret hatred for the prettiest girl in the room.
Yeah.
And it's like so true, like we see like the most beautiful person and we're like, whoa, like she's so far out of my league, or, I could never talk to her. She would never be my friend. And it's not endearing. And real people are endearing, and that's what I'm finding is that they need to be real. They need to be authentic. They've got to have a confidence that allows them to pursue the vision God's given them that will take them to this level of influence that other people are attracted to.
I can't believe the average age is up 40.
40,
this is
right?
crazy. How old are you, by the way?
Yeah. I'm either 37 or 38 right now, I think. I don't know. I lost track. I always I couldn't wait for age 32. I was like counting down to since age 16. I was like, 32 is going to be like a great year. I can't wait for 32.
What?
I always just thought like at 32, you're going to know, your career. By then you're probably going to like have figured out like who your spouse is or, your friends for life. And sure enough, at age 32, I was engaged to Randy. I had the most dear sister friends and knew I'd already launched my business by then. So 32 was my year. So now every year, now 44 is the next one I'm looking forward to. So I better start counting.
Where are you coming up with these numbers?
I don't know.
All right. I got to hit on this a little bit more because I'm so glad it came up, because when I look at the beauty contests, I almost get, and this is just being completely transparent, like when I watch it, I feel like, I'm like, they're being so subjectified. Like, I don't know. Like, why would you do that to yourself to be just subjectively judged? But you're putting such a different spin on it that these women, it's not all about the beauty thing. It's about making an impact.
Yeah.
It's about their calling. Right?
That's right. That's right.
So just hit me with it just a little bit more here as far as like to dispel the myths. You've already touched on it a little bit.
Yeah.
But everyone that we're looking at these when they come out in the bikini and the things and the
right.
So, but it's a lot more than that.
Yes. Yeah. So I do think that there's something to be said for the way that a woman presents herself in front of an audience. And when you are presenting yourself in front of an audience, whether it's in an evening gown or in a bikini, there's a level of for pageant stage, there's a necessary level of both confidence and grace, meaning that there's a difference if you put Nicki Minaj on stage versus if you put, the first lady on stage.
Yeah.
They're going to carry themselves differently. And I think that the pageant industry wants the femininity and the grace of a respectable lady.
Yeah.
Versus somebody who doesn't know, how to carry themselves or would feel shy in front of an audience and things like that. So what the misconception is that it's often about the perfect body, or that it's about the, skinny girl with the big boobs and the long blonde hair and things like that. But what actually gets scored the best in most pageant systems today is the woman who, no matter what she looks like, owns the room. And she can walk in just like she would walk in a business suit, or she would step onto stage in a full-length gown. She's going to walk in with an appropriate outfit that fits her well, that flatters her figure, whatever it may be. She's got her hair and her makeup looking delightful, and she's put time and effort into that. And, there are seasons in a woman's life where those things are not important,
Yeah.
Like it just is not always important because it just can't always be. And there are even days in the week where you're not going to be able to think about that every single day.
Right.
However, when the situation presents itself, if you are invited to have tea at the White House, you're going to want to dress a certain way. And we need to know that you, as the representative of this pageant system, you're going to know what's appropriate. And so that's really what they're looking for. How does the dress fall? How did she choose that? Does that color even suit her well? So generally, experienced judges are looking beyond what the audience is seeing. That's why sometimes there's a winner that's like shocking. Like, how'd that girl win? What about that gorgeous girl in the back? And it's like, well, yeah, that gorgeous girl in the back wore that mini skirt. Like, what was she thinking? So sure, she's hot, but like, that's not appropriate, So it's things like that really help, femininity and beauty are different depending on the audience, right?
Yep. And so we can parallel all of this to basically a personal brand.
Yes.
Right?
That's right.
Like how a man, men are out of this conversation. So women, the way they carry themselves, the way they look in public, the way they look, like when Rachel and I go out, we never just say, screw it, we're just going to look like slobs today, right?
Right.
Because we've got a personal brand we got going here.
That's right.
And we want to set the example of someone that's got it together, making moves, making a difference, impacting the world, right? Setting the best example possible, as I said, right? So this is all about a personal brand.
It is.
Of who you are, how you carry yourself. And confidence is, nothing's more beautiful or attractive than confidence.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And with my clients, we start first with the very first thing we do is a deep dive into branding.
Yeah.
And we pull out their value system.
Wow.
Because your value system, those things that you just mentioned, you know, we've got it together. That's something you value is like, hey, we want to look, we're pursuing goals. You know, all those things you're describing are your values.
Yeah.
Those are things that are important to you.
Right.
You value those things. And everybody has different values. What often happens when people are not feeling confident is when their actions are not in alignment with what they find valuable. And so we have to first understand what is valuable to you and not to the world, not to you, what you think the judges are looking for, not to what you think the pageant is expecting of you, but what's important to you. And now let's align. We have an ABC, appearance, behavior, communication. How do we align these three areas to your personal brand? What are the areas you're already aligned with ABC? And what are the areas, your appearance, that we can improve to align with your value system? How can we improve the behaviors that you're doing to align with your values and your communication? How do we do that to align with your value system? Then once we understand, like, this is their brand, this is what they stand for, now that woman, when she's starting to act in alignment with those values, now this woman is able to show up on stage very confident because she's like, I know what is important to me and I know that I'm living those things out. And that's the confidence, what you said, that's extremely attractive.
Yes.
You know, even if it's something completely different, it's so attractive when it's their personal values that they're walking out. And
I talk about this all the time, like, and we'll talk about sales, because our whole life is revolved around sales.
Yes.
We're all selling each other on something.
That's right.
No, whatever what it is. Doesn't have to be a product, doesn't have to be a service. It can be anything that you're doing, you're selling. You're selling yourself. And the number one trait of a very successful or effective salesperson is confidence.
Yes.
It's number one. Number one is confidence. Like, when people come in this store, when they deal with me for 30 minutes and my education and what I know about mattresses and the sleep and the human body, like, you know, I know what I'm talking about.
That's right.
So, God, I love this.
And you know, part of it, JD, is the way that you look also gives you authority to speak to the human body. And so a woman walking on stage who is, you know, if she doesn't look like she has the authority to speak about the thing that she's promoting, then that's what the trust is lost, right? And so that's why the physical appearance is actually important.
This is such a great thing that we've gotten on here. And ladies, my lady listeners, we got a lot of them. You know. Anyway, for those, because I've talked to a lot of girls recently at the church that I'm helping them with a brand, a personal brand. On like, listen, first thing you got to do is the number one form of marketing is word of mouth.
Yeah.
Social media is word of mouth on steroids, and they're giving it to you for free.
Yes.
Run with it. So start your personal brand now. Personal brand is generosity. Personal brand is the way you carry yourself, being happy, being joyful. That's a personal brand.
Yes.
Hey, I know they're always so happy. They always look so happy. This person's so generous. These are brands. These are all things. So my point here of getting back to what you're saying is tune in, because they can tune into your podcast now and learn all about a personal brand.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Yes.
Even if they're not in the pageant.
That's right.
If they're doing this for their social media, they're doing this for their whatever they're doing, their business. You know, you can help them. Yes. Right?
Yes. And we actually have several clients who are not competing in pageants that have joined our program because of the fact that they are learning all these other pieces. They're building passion projects that they want to get out into the world,
Yeah.
and they want to learn how to speak about
Yes.
the things that are important to them in a short and concise way, in a confident way, so that they can express it and get it out into the world, you know? And yes, personal branding, that's awesome that you're helping people, because really it is key. And you know, there's this concept in coaching that when you are inside the jar, you're not able to read the label. And so a coach is able to help you see from the outside, hey, here's what you're made of. Here are the ingredients that make you awesome. And so having somebody, you know, like you're doing for these gals, having somebody else speak in life into you and say, hey, this is what I see in you is so, so valuable. Because we see, from our own perspective, we see all of our flaws. We see all the things we've overcome. We see who we were and who we want to be, but not necessarily just, well, here's the best parts of who you are right now.
I love this. This is so good. All right, so let's fast forward now. You said you got engaged to Randy.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the Randy, and then, so did you guys, when you first met, give me your thoughts on, you've got one daughter.
Yes.
So far. Yep. Do we know what?
We don't know yet.
We don't know. Okay. And so when you were, at what point we're like, okay, let's start having kids. How did that happen?
Yeah.
Did you like, hey, let's do this, I want to have kids right away, or no?
Yeah, no.
Give me the whole scenario.
Growing up, I didn't know if I wanted kids or not.
Okay.
And I know a lot of women, they grow up knowing they're always going to be a mom.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case for me. I wasn't like, you know, I'm never going to have kids. I never said that. But I was just like, I don't know, it might not happen. That's fine too.
Yeah.
So I had this sort of like, it could go either direction. So when he and I got married, we were like, you know, let's not start trying right away. Let's give ourselves a year to just be together, and then we'll start trying. So a year into our marriage, we started trying, and it wasn't happening. So about 4 years, maybe 3 years or so later after this, and you know, for women who have been in this experience, the trying part is exhausting.
Right.
It's exhausting. It's so that, you know, every month you're let down, and it's just, it's a very, it's an emotional experience. And so at some point I was like, this is getting, like, I don't even know if I need this. Like, I don't know. Like, I never needed a kid. Like, I have to have a kid or something. So how about we just have a different vision for our lives? And so I was trying to convince Randy of like getting on this like whole different vision. Like, I was like, what if and I had all these cool ideas. Like, well, what if instead of having our own children, what if we started, like, I had this cool idea of like starting a, camp basically, or like a program for 17-year-olds in the foster care system. At 18, they're no longer able to be in foster care. And so I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we gave them like some life skills? You know, we helped them like open a bank account. We helped them get their first apartment. And we did all of this while they were still in that final year in the foster care. So, you know, anyway, I had this whole idea of like all this fun stuff that he was like, what? No, we're starting a family. What are you talking about? We're not going to have time for this right now. And I really wanted him to get on board with this whole like other vision. And it was mostly because I was exhausted of not achieving the vision that we had set out. Now, fortunately for me, 4 years is nothing compared to what many women try for decades.
But also, exactly. So on that note right there, tell me about your feeling, because Rachel and I went through this.
Oh, okay.
I mean, 2 to 3 years at least.
Really? Yeah.
And I remember every month when she'd get her cycles, like,
yes.
And I would never show that I was disappointed ever. I'd be like, hey, baby,
that's right.
wasn't meant to be.
Good for you.
When it's meant to be, it will be. I'm telling you 100% this is going to happen. Meanwhile, behind my back, my both fingers were crossed, my toes were crossed. I'm like, please, God, please. But she was so dejected and it got worse and worse. The dejection of like, oh my gosh. So talk to me about that, because this is now a relevant topic for a lot of women.
That's right.
That feel this and they get upset, they get frustrated. Like you just actually, you know what? Forget this. Let's just go a different way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So during this time, I knew that I did not want to explore any alternative ways of getting pregnant. So I knew that if I wanted it to happen, it was going to happen naturally. I didn't want to go IVF. I didn't want to go any of these other routes. And so, and that was mostly because and this is like, God is so good. I believe that this is because I did not have this like burning desire, like I have to have a child. Like it's an met portion of myself that needs to be realized. Like I never felt that way. I was just like, it's cool if it doesn't happen,
Yeah.
But I knew Randy really wanted to have a child, and I was open to it at the beginning of our marriage. We're in love and we're like kind of creating this life together and things are going great. But then it wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. And in for a lot of women, everybody's try is different. Our try was lazy. It was very lazy try. It wasn't like I was trying all that hard. It wasn't like I know some women are taking their temperature at the same hour every 6:04 every single day, and this was not the case for me.
Try.
It was a lazy try. Yeah, and so, but mostly because I was not fully. I am like 0 or 100. And so this was an area I was kind of a 0 in. I was like, like I've got other things. I was building my business and, creating our marriage, and we were traveling all over the world and doing a lot of other things. So it felt like a lower priority. And I knew I was like, I didn't know that we were going to have trouble. And so it felt like, a lot of the story that women will tell themselves is like, this is what a woman is supposed to do. And it's the one thing that a woman is designed to do. And I can't do it. And so we sometimes can personalize it. And fortunately, with a fitness background and things like that, I was kind of like, there's probably something else happening. Dr. Matt ended up introducing me to his nutritionist, and Dr. Matt, the chiropractor, who we both know and love, and introduced me to a nutritionist who was an endocrine specialist, hormones. And in 6 months, she helped me correct some of the internal things, gut health, liver health, things like this that were not functioning properly.
Wow.
And so 6 months later, we conceived.
No kidding.
Yeah. It was like I wasn't looking for solutions. I really wasn't looking for the whole time. I was kind of like, just like, whatever, let's just give up. Like, I don't need to find these other solutions. Let's just, whatever it happens.
We need to force the issue.
That's right. Then
I'm not doing it.
Exactly.
Like let's not the IVF, all this stuff. And that's
right.
kind of what I told Rachel. I said, I don't want to go to these other means. If it's not meant to be naturally, but it's going to happen naturally. Trust me, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
anyway, so I feel you.
Yeah. So then when I was introduced to this nutritionist, I was like, well, that's great. Like I knew that there were other symptoms I was having that I was like, hey, if a nutritionist can help me with this, like, let's go.
Yeah.
And so then I healed a lot of other issues of my health through that process, and then was able to conceive.
Wow. Okay. So talk to me about the, any stories about the pregnancy or when baby came, how did that go? What?
It was turbulent.
It was.
It was very turbulent. So I was older, I was pregnant. So I think I'm probably like 38 now.
Yeah.
So I was probably 36
I love how
or
you
37.
don't even really actually know.
Yeah, I know. I was born in 84. So, someone could do the math.
Like I think 38?
Yeah.
So 84, let's see, that's 13 years behind me. That's
it would
38.
Be an even number. Okay,
yeah,
38.
Yeah.
So I think I probably was like maybe pregnant at 36 and gave birth at 37, something like that. So that's like older than a lot of women. And so, and my health was not excellent. So, I had previously adrenal fatigue, which is part of what we healed in the nutritional experience. And so that caused a lot of other issues. So I wasn't fit. My body was not strong to physically carry the weight of a baby. And so and then my nutrition was still, only 6 months healed. So it was like there was a lot of other issues that impacted my pregnancy that made it what I would describe as very difficult. My favorite part of pregnancy was how close I felt to God, because I was like, he's doing this and I'm basically along for the ride, which was so cool. Like I was like, really? And I knew in my heart, I knew that birth is a miracle, and it's not just the miracle of the birth itself, but of all of the transformations that happen in body, mind, spirit to experience that birthing process, not from everything that takes place to conceive, and then all the way through the birth, and then even for years after that, just kids are miraculous. Like that, it's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
So the pregnancy was tough, and in my around 37 weeks, I had an SI joint issue, so I wasn't able to walk. I was kind of like hobbling around, which was awful. And I didn't know it. I have like a very high tolerance of pain. So I kind of just hobbled around and I had no clue, like, why does this hurt so bad, And it was really a lack of strength around, and other areas of my body. So anyway, and then the birthing process, we were planning to do a home birth with a midwife and, kumbaya, all the things, which usually I discovered later, that is typically what people do for their second child. Usually not a first child is like a home birth. And now I know why, because I had no idea what to expect, so I'm like laboring at home. Like, is this normal? And, the SI joint pain, I had back pain. I had, it was just like crazy, like which I really feel probably 95% of birth stories are turbulent.
Right.
And
for sure.
And I think that we want it to be the perfect experience, but I think that there's strength when it's not. And so it was not. It ended in, 24 hours of labor at home, being taken to the hospital, another 20 some hours of labor there that ended in all the medications that we did not want and a C-section. And I was not educated on a C-section.
And so you originally were at home for home birth?
Yes. The midwife came, the whole team came, we blew up the tub and but what was interesting is like so many pieces of that were falling apart.
Yeah.
Like I don't, it's hard to know because I was kind of like in a different world. When you're in labor, you're not present. You're in a completely different world. And so there were things that were happening. Like I remember at one time she was like, here, let's go to sleep. Like I was 9 centimeters dilated, which you only go to 10.
Yeah.
And she's like, let's go to sleep. The midwife lays me into bed and like tries to get me to go to sleep. Like I was crazy. I was like, why are we doing this right now? But my brain, you're not thinking when you're in labor, your brain goes to sleep. And so anyway, I was just kind of like following the motions. So yeah, so we were at home and then we needed to transfer.
When did they know? Like what happened to they knew that you needed to?
Well, it was my midwife. There's something about legally they're only able to allow you to be in labor after your water breaks for a certain amount of time. So for my midwife, it was 24 hours after your water broke. So my water had broken that morning. And so I knew that if I didn't have the baby that night, then I would have to be transferred to the hospital. And so we get to the hospital and God laid everything out for us before we arrived, which I did not realize until after the fact. But like we were the only people on the labor and delivery floor. There were no other patients on our hospital floor. We were the only one. So we had all the nurses in with us and stuff, which was awesome. We had the best care there. They were phenomenal. This was, and I can't remember the name of the hospital. Maybe Palomar or something.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it. And then this doctor in San Diego who in all of our crunchy community was saying that if you were going to go with a doctor, the best natural doctor to go with is this Dr. Cobb. And it just happened. Dr. Cobb walks in the room and he's like, hello, I'm Dr. Cobb. I'm the doctor that's on call tonight. And we were like, what? This is crazy. Like, how cool that's the, So it worked itself out beautifully. It did not go the way that we wanted to go, but I know that it was meant to be in that way. I showed up at the hospital 9 centimeters dilated and then sat at 9 centimeters for like another, I forget how long it would have been, another probably 12 or 15 hours. And so it just, the baby didn't want to come in that direction. That wasn't going to happen. And so the C-section was necessary. And thank God for modern medicine because if not, I don't know what would have happened. I'm not sure that I would have been able to give birth, vaginally if not, this. So anyway,
what was your thoughts when they said we're gonna have to do a C-section? What did you immediately think then? Because I remember we were literally 3 minutes away from them calling it and doing a C-section. They said 11:15 p.m. She can't do this anymore. She's been pushing for 3 hours and 15 minutes of pushing.
Yeah, wow.
Straight pushing.
Yes.
That's a long time.
That is a very long time.
30-something hours of labor.
Oh, my.
3 hours. It is 11:15. We're calling 11:13. Jacqueline popped out.
Wow.
It's because the umbilical cord was around her neck.
Oh, wow.
So every time she'd come out, pull back in because the umbilical cord kept pulling her back in.
Wow.
Freaking incredible. So anyway, but I remember when when they said we're going to have to do a C-section, the operating room was set up. Everything was ready to go.
Wow.
And then I saw the look on her face. She was horrified. Like she didn't want a C-section.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts when they said C-section? Were you like, no, or...
Actually, I was relieved.
Oh.
So I had at some point along the way, my spirit knew this. I kind of knew like how it was going to end.
Yeah.
And no woman wants to have a major surgery and then take care of a newborn immediately. No one wants that. But I felt like, I'm at peace with this. Like I could do this. I think it's fine. I think that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
I was really fine with it. I remember I was so fine with it. I was like, okay, like we made the decision. Yep. All right. We called Dr. Matt because we were like, what do we, this is different than we expected. Any advice? He gave us some incredible advice. And
what was his advice? Do you remember his advice?
His advice, two things. One was release it. Don't give it any energy. Don't make it a thing.
Yeah.
So oftentimes there's like you described Rachel having.
Yeah.
It feels like a disappointment to have to do that.
Yeah.
It feels like, bummer. I really wanted to have this other experience for these 20 million reasons. And so it feels like a letdown. It feels like, and Dr. Matt said, do not give it energy. Don't make it a thing. Don't make this like a bad thing or something. Just like, it's just the other alternative, And I loved it. I was like, yeah, he's right. Like this doesn't need to be a thing. And then the other piece of advice was, when the baby comes out of the vaginal canal, there's a compression that happens on the lungs that help the baby to then start to breathe. So when the baby comes out of the C-section, that doesn't always. Now there's ways that doctors, and my doctor was like, I can do this, that, whatever, to try to make it happen. But so the advice that Dr. Matt had given us was to stimulate the skin of the baby through like rigorous massage, like kind of, so that because the other breathing organ is the skin. And so if you can kind of get the skin to kind of have that sensation, that will help the baby, to breathe. Well, our child was so healthy and so like cried immediately, like all the things that you want to hear when your baby's born. So it was such a beautiful, we were so fortunate in that. But yeah, so I was, kind of like, okay, sounds good. Let's do it. Like I was like, that's good. We should have probably decided this 8 hours ago.
Right.
Like it felt like that was what needed to happen. And as it was, her positioning was such that her shoulder was like in the way, and there was like she was like, facing the wrong direction. And there were reasons why, I wasn't dilating to 10 centimeters. So I never pushed. So I know that So because I was at 9 centimeters, I wasn't fully at 10, fully dilated. So I wasn't even to the place of pushing yet. So anyway, it was a turbulent experience. And then after the fact, I think just especially sleep deprivation and hormonal crashing and all of these things kind of led me to wanting to place blame on basically anybody. Like, who can we blame for this other than just the circumstances, And so then I was like, well, let's blame the midwife and and we like couldn't find blame. We were like, no, like everybody did their job. Everybody did the things. It was just the situation was as it was. And so it was still something I needed to process. I wanted to talk through. It felt so foggy because in labor, I was sort of not paying attention and wasn't really, connected to the experience. I was so out of it. So yeah, it took a while to process it and to really come around to like, this is just what happened. Like, let's not give it any energy. Like, let's just be like, this is how it happened. Like, end of story. Yeah.
Because it is common that when things go awry, that there's like blame game going on. Like, oh, it's because of this, because of the midwife, because of that, right? Yeah. It's inevitable.
And like, why did this happen? And why did this happen to me? And am I not healthy? And was there something I could do? And what if the midwife, what if we did an ultrasound before? Could we have discovered her positioning? And would there have been something? What if I went swimming 12 days before? And could I have, it was like all that coulda, woulda, shoulda, which again, that's not really my default, but because of the situation, having had a major surgery that I was trying to recover from, having major sleep deprivation, taking care of a newborn, the major changes that kind of all happened so literally overnight. And then my body was trying to regulate. And I think like from those places, like just as humans, when we are at a deficit, whatever that may be, sleep, at a deficit of nutrition, at a deficit of joy, at a deficit of whatever, we tend to go to negative things. And so I think that it was like a deficit in every different area. And so then it was so easy for me to just go to all the negative.
Yeah.
And it really took Randy, my husband, to kind of stay in the positive. You know, he I'm sure was sleep deprived too and had an emotional roller coaster himself, you know, but in a different way. So he was able to be a support for me through that, you know, reckoning.
And so talk to me about that. You and Randy moving forward, because I know it's very common for when baby arrives, daddy doesn't get much as much. Well, husband doesn't get as much attention anymore. What happened? How did that go? Was it smooth? Did you guys was it hunky dory?
Not at all. No, not at all. No, it was totally probably very textbook. Textbook like disaster zone. So we. Thank goodness we love each other, and thank goodness we have an incredible community, and thank goodness we have resources that we were able to go to. So we actually didn't know things were off for a while. So for the first 2 weeks, I was so in love with this baby. Like I would look at this baby and just be like, my heart is exploding with love. Like it just was uncontainable. It was just so. And then I would look at my husband and I would be like, he really needs to do the dishes, you know, or like whatever, right? And I remember feeling that way about him when we first met. I had this heart exploding love, like I couldn't contain it when we first met. And now that was transferred to this little baby. And so there was definitely this like, you know, and I was on the couch for 2 weeks. It was so hard to move. I couldn't laugh. I couldn't cough because of the C-section. There were many, many other issues too that were, you know, causing sort of a strife with he and I. Like if I had just gone through the surgery and there was no baby, it still would have been tough, you know? So anyway, so then what we discovered later, so after it was probably... Our baby didn't sleep through the night until about 9 months. And so we were up multiple times in the night. And at first, my thought process was, oh, well, my husband's working, so I'll just do the night shift. And again, high pain tolerance. And so I was just like, I'll just do it. Like, it just seemed like, you know, I'm all in. I'll just do, this is what I'll do. And about 2 weeks in, he was like, babe, I don't think you can sleep on this couch any longer. And I was like, I was sleeping upright on the couch, sitting up on a couch. Like, that's not even comfortable, you know? But it wasn't registering to me that was what was even happening. Yeah. And so I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have to sleep on the couch forever. Okay, let's move me to the bed, you know? And like, so then I started moving, you know, it was like things like that he would notice, like, why are we still doing this? So
where was the baby? Where did you have the baby?
She would sleep in my arms.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I would just sleep here. I would put my feet up on the ottoman and she would sleep right in my arms and nurse in the nights. And, you know, and he would get up for diaper changes, you know, a couple times in the night. I would call him on the phone in the bedroom and he would come out and help with the diaper change. And then I would stand up and use the restroom and fill my water. And like, this went on for weeks. So then, anyway, so then months go by, and around 10 months, she started, 9-10 months, she started sleeping through the night. And so that's when I started coming back to my brain. You know, I started being like, I started having more, in all the meanwhile, I would have moments where I would just like explode at him. He would do something small and I would just roar like, "Rawr, this is so wrong, la la la," like, but it was from a place of this pain and like a out of body experience that my mind could not, and he and I are super into personal development. So we're all like, we know how to communicate. We have like regular meetings and all this, like we're really great at communication ordinarily, but this was more like animalistic because I was like totally disconnected. And so I would just like scream about stuff that would be going wrong. And later we ended up getting connected to Dr. Brian Reeswig. Have you interviewed him yet?
I have not.
Oh, you
gotta get him on here.
You definitely do.
I gotta get him on.
Man, that guy is so good, so good.
I just got goosebumps because he popped into my mind about 2 or 3 days ago.
Oh yeah.
Because I have a long list of guests. You were on it from day one. Mm-hmm. Finally, the Holy Spirit lined us up.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm letting the Holy Spirit bring people to me as well.
Yes,
and Brian was one where I saw him at the marriage thing and said, "Ooh, okay." So and then good. 2 days ago, and now you mentioned him again, so I'm going to reach out.
Yeah,
to
you got to.
Yeah.
You got to. The dude is unbelievably just dialed in.
And by the way, he's a marriage counselor, marriage therapist?
I don't know the difference, but yes, that. He
that.
helps people who are married and struggling. So we were like, okay, we got to see this guy because we could not figure it out on our own. We were trying. Randy and I were trying to like have more conversations and every time we would bring something up, it would just crumble. Like it was just, we would be mad at each other, we'd walk away. So one of the things that we learned through Dr. Brian and you know, there's a mountain hill of the things that could discover. I'll give the tip of the iceberg was that Randy and I, our coping strategies were to go to independence. So when, as a couple, when we felt that it's called attachment styles, and this is what we learned from Dr. Brian, and that everybody has a different attachment style. For Randy and I, which is somewhat uncommon for a married couple to have the same attachment style, usually they have opposite attachment styles, which helps them to stay together. Ours was the same, and it was such that the attachment is you know, to oversimplify it, it's either when you feel a threat or a lack of trust, you either lean toward the person overly, where you're like texting them all the time and they better text you back and like, do you love me? And you know, they need this neediness, or you say there was a breach of trust here. There's a something is broken here. So I'll just cut you off. I don't need you anyway. I'm just going to go do it on my own. Well, Randy and I are that. We're this very independent. So if there is some level of like, you know, breakdown, we're just like, you know what, never mind, I'm good. Well, so this happened when we first had the baby because there's a lot of stuff going on and everybody doesn't know what their role is and all this.
Right.
So there was that break of you know, it breakdown in the system. And it made us both want to say, never mind, I don't need you. But in that situation, we actually did need each other.
Of course.
And so while both of us were attempting to move away from the other because we felt like the breach was coming from the other person, so we needed to get away and be more independent, he was doing that away from me, and I was attempting to do that away from him, but I physically couldn't. I physically needed his help. I was incapacitated. And so what then happened was I took sort of a shift toward him and went to the needy place because I actually did need him. And so my attachment style then kind of flipped to begging for help and begging for, you know, and he was like, yikes, this is like not attractive. And so then it pushed him even further away.
Oh, wow.
And so to look at this sort of like, as we called it, a dance of, you know, the pattern of what was going on really helped us to see what was, you know, then when you take it to the personal level of like, we could use this theory, this pattern to help us understand what was actually happening in our real life situation. And that's the thing that helped us be like, oh, you're doing it. You're running from me right now. Or, oh, you're doing it. You're being really needy right now. Like, what is it you need? And so then we would
would you call each other on it?
Yes. And we're still practicing it. It's taken a lot of practice because we're so used to not calling each other on it, letting that person just be and figuring out a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
You know? And so we've realized like, no, we actually do, in order for our marriage to be strengthened, we actually have to call one another out on this so that we can get to the root of it. So we can figure out like, oh, this is what it looks like for us. Oh, this is how it feels for you. This is how it feels for me. And so there would be actions like, I remember once he was on his way to a business event on like a weekend and a Saturday afternoon or something. And I brought up to him like, hey, and I thought I was doing it like I should do it, you know? And so I just thought, oh, this is what I'm supposed to like say out loud. I'm going to try it. I'm going to practice saying this thing out loud. And I was with energy. I said like, hey, I just want to let you know this thing came up for me and like, this is how I'm feeling about it. And I felt like, and it was that I felt like I was becoming the default parent on the weekends. Like he would just like go away for anything he needed to go away for. But if I had to go away, I would have to make sure there are all the bottles there. I'd have to make sure that there's this, write down the naps schedule, you know, all the things, but he could just leave. And so I expressed that probably horrendously, and instantly, instead of him feeling like, wow, babe, thanks so much for expressing that. Great job. No, it backfired. He was like, what? You're telling me this right before I leave? Like, So anyway, then in a huff, he
Was
left.
he going on a business
And
trip?
yeah, exactly. So then it was just for the day. He had a business outing for the day. And
Oh,
so,
boy.
I know. So it was terrible. So he came back. So then the next day, it gets worse. It gets worse, JD. The next
Oh,
day
gosh.
is Father's Day.
Oh, no.
And I forgot about Father's. I had
Oh,
planned it
Lord.
previously because I'm a
Lord,
planner.
have
So weeks
mercy.
prior, I had like got a gift and like all the things. But
So you
I did this
in the heat
to
of the
him.
moment,
In the
you
heat of the
forgot about
moment,
Father's Day?
Well, and I forgot about it. And so then the Sunday morning comes, and I'm like, okay, we're practicing this whole marriage thing. Like, we're gonna work this out. Like, so it's Father's Day, and I don't even say like Happy Father's Day. Let's celebrate you, babe. Instead, I'm like only thinking one track mind about how we're gonna like practice this conversation. It's difficult having a difficult conversation together to like work. I know it was terrible. It was terrible. So anyway. We ended up realizing in the moment, we were like, hang on a second. I think we're doing this wrong. Like, wait a second. This isn't how it's supposed to go. So we both said, okay, hang on. Can we just like take some space? So we walked away for an hour. When we came back, we pretended it never even happened. And it was brilliant. Like, we came back and we were like celebrating and we like had a blast and I like gave him his gifts. And
Wait. So at what point did he realize you forgot Father's Day?
I told him.
You told him?
I told him. I was like, babe, I forgot that this is, because I
When?
brought up all this stuff and then he was mad. And so then he left the room and I was like, oh my gosh,
So when
it's
you came
Father's
back
Day.
together?
So we come back together and then that's when I was like, babe, I realize it's Father's Day and that this is not what the conversation we need to be having today. Let's have some space and then let's come back and celebrate. And so we were
So
like,
it was before you
good deal.
broke apart
So
and
then
came
we
back.
broke apart. We spent some time away, like an hour or so, and like whatever, just did our own thing. And then we came back together and then we just celebrated. And it's what we needed because it's tough, man. This marriage stuff is like, you got to do it. You got to stay in it. You have to but what I discovered in that moment was that it doesn't need to be the constant, work does not, just like at work, running your business and stuff, it's work. You're going to do the work,
Yep.
but you're also going to celebrate. You can't just only do the work stuff. Like, you have to enjoy it. You have to have fun with the stuff that's working, And so anyway, but what came of that was that I understood how he felt and why my words impacted him specifically. Like, we can all make assumptions about why, and right assumptions, I'm sure, about why those words would affect him right as he's walking out the door. But I was able to understand it from his perspective, and that's what made me say, oh, wow, I would never want to do that. That was not my intention.
Yeah.
My intention was just, I'm trying to practice this new way of conversating and this new way of sort of like, instead of just being like, whatever, I don't need you, I'll just be independent, but rather like, let's communicate and let's do it together.
And so, and again, I don't know, we talked about this earlier about how I've talked about it so many times recently because Awaken keeps bringing this to me.
Yeah.
And like the marriage getaway, I keep talking about that. Rachel and I went. Here's the most important thing is, like, could be like, well, when do we just know that it's done? Stop working on it. Like, it's not worth it. And let me know if you're with me on this, is as long as you both are willing to work on it, like you both really want to work on it, then you got to work on it. Then work on it. Marriage is a constant work in progress, right? Constant work in
100%.
progress. And the whole marriage getaway, you were there, yeah. The whole thing was about, you're going to have fights, you're going to be working on it, and if you're fighting that it's working.
Yes.
That was the overall encompassing
Yes.
theme that I got out of that.
Yes.
If you're arguing, fighting, whatever it is, it's working.
Yes.
If you're not, then somebody in the relationship's a totalitarian or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, right?
Uh-huh.
Like a dictator and somebody else.
or doesn't give a rip. And
Yeah,
so they're
or
just
doesn't
like,
care.
like, whatever. Like, yeah, you do you, I'll do me, and we'll just coexist. Right.
Which unfortunately a lot of people are doing,
That's right.
right? Are literally going through the motions, settling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and they say falling out of love, falling into love, but it's kind of sad actually when you think about it. How many couples are settling?
Yes. And I think that there's, just like anything that, imagine you climb a beautiful mountain and it's like difficult training and then you got to do the actual mountain climb. But when you're at the top, it's like, this is such a beautiful view. But if you've never seen the view before, others can describe it to you, but does it really make you want to climb that mountain?
Yeah.
You got to really want it. And I think that sometimes people, for us, we are still under 10 years married. I don't know, or maybe 6 or 7 years married now. And so we are still gaining the perspective of what that view at the height of the mountain will look like. And so we got to climb these mountains, and like, I know that having children is one big thing that draws couples either closer or further apart if they're not willing to do it. And we're like willing to do it. We're like trying to figure out how do we do this? And it takes practice, and it's like we're kind of stumbling around, and it's like not going perfect, but that is the process. Like you said, like those moments, like when he's walking out and I'm practicing, like trying to say my feelings, and he's like kind of like, I'm walking out the door, like we're having this conversation right now, you got to tell me your feelings, like, well, I'm trying to practice it, well, I learned from that, like how not to do it, and so now I can do it better in the future, and so. And he also learned how to receive it and what my intention was versus what the, intention what he experienced. So it's like that's the process of like exactly like you described of marriage. And I know that that's something that Dr. Brian said to me. He's like, you need to start like causing some problems in your relationship, because
he said that.
He was like, I'm the one that had all the feelings that I was bottling up and sort of like not expressing. And he's like, your husband doesn't know you feel these feelings. And so if you don't bring them up, and I don't want to bring them up because I don't want to cause I don't want to stir the pot. And so I'll just not say these things. It's fine. I'll just do what I need to do, and you just do what you need to do, and let's just go the opposite direction. No. That's not going to be the thing that brings you closer. You actually need to kind of stir the pot a bit and be like, look, this is the thing that I'm feeling. And then your husband needs to recognize that and know it, and then he can help to know, oh, that's who you are, that's how you feel, that helps me understand you deeper, and then that's the thing that brings you closer together as you climb the mountaintop. And
so what's Brian's like main from day one, like what does he say about like when you first meet what's going to be your husband or wife, like how do you minimize, like how do you make sure that you've you've chosen the right one, they've chosen you. I've always preached to have the talk in the beginning. I call it the talk.
What's the talk?
The talk is when you meet someone and you're realize, okay, this is going to be the one. You have the talk, and the talk is getting it all out in the beginning. Like, okay, let's go over everything on what our, we've talked about this core values, our aspirations. Where are we going with this? Do you want to be employee for the rest of your life, or do we want to be entrepreneurs? Like Rachel and I said, I want to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So we will be entrepreneurs together. Are you down with that? Like, so we will live a life of entrepreneurship, of going for it and striving and breaking the cycle of, because her family was completely broke. Mine was we had no money either. As a kid. I want to break that cycle. So let's boom. And my point is, also the house will be ice cold like a meat locker for the rest of our life. That was in the talk. I'm being dead serious. That was in the talk. She's like, and she's Asian, so she's always cold.
Wow. Yes.
So I brought it up because my mom taught me that. You got to bring it up before you get married.
That's right. Yeah.
Or even move in together.
Right.
Because once you move in together and you get married, that's it. You can't go back.
Yes, that's exactly right.
There's no surprises.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the talk involved all that, like what she likes, what I don't, blah, blah, bing. So that's what I was saying about the talk.
So we had that, and we went through the marriage coaching at Awaken.
Oh, you did?
They do like a premarital kind of
even
coaching
before
experience before we got married. And so we had a lot of great wisdom. We had so many wonderful conversations. But what I have found is that as people grow, things change. And so the talk isn't always, gonna be the same. Right? Like things do change. So maybe at that time, you wanted to live in a city forever, but now you are a different person 5 years later, 10 years later, 15, 30 years later. And you're like, you know what? I really want to live in the country now. And so I think that the part of that growth is, I love the idea of having those conversations because it brings things up and it helps to facilitate like, oh, wait, you do want that? Wait a second, that's different than what I want. And not that it's a deal breaker, but that it's like we need to be able to understand one another and understand our reasonings, and that, I'm sure that if Rachel was like, wait a second, no, we can't have the entire house. Like, I need to have at least a room I can turn on a little space heater in or something. You wouldn't be like, oh, deal breaker. This isn't going to work.
Actually, it would
like,
have been.
One room in the house.
Not one room.
Oh my gosh.
And I've raised my kids, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
That even Jacqueline, it's like a meat locker. She said, Daddy, is the AC on?
Oh yeah.
Like, because Rachel tried to when the kids came in.
Yeah.
Rachel was trying to get the house hot. Then, well, we can't have the kids hot.
Yeah.
She's going to be. We can't have her too. She's going to get sick. She's going to be too cold. I'm like, no. We're not raising our children to be like you, to where you're cold 24. It's not going to happen. Meaning that, and I'm dead serious about this.
Wow,
like I kept, and so Jacqueline, now my 11-year-old daughter, is right on the same page with me. The house has to be ice cold.
Yeah, holy cow! So is everybody just walking around in sweaters?
Yes.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
That's great. Except for you.
And every night for 21 years.
Yeah.
That Rachel and I have been together 21 years. Wow. There isn't one single night in 21 years. I'm never really apart from her ever, the family ever. I don't go on business trips. I don't do anything. A little bit day here, day there. That's it. Right. Literally a handful. My point is, every night for 21 years, Rachel has told me how cold she is.
Oh my goodness.
I'm not even exaggerating.
How does that make you feel, JD?
I laugh.
Oh my.
She's like,
this is the woman you love.
It's cold. She'll do the lip thing. Yeah. I'm like, baby, you better wrap up. I mean, put another. I have another quilt. Well, then put a sweater on. I've got a sweater on. I'm like, well, what do you want me to do?
You're like, this wasn't our talk. This isn't the original contract.
21 years.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I'm not exaggerating.
You're not budging. So what's her thing? What's her thing that she's not budging on?
You know how this is with the I'm a very overbearing, controlling guy, right? I love controlling everything. But she lets me be a man. However, even though I'm supposedly running things, she lets me feel like I am.
Yeah.
But really, Rachel runs everything.
Oh,
right.
Well, thank God.
Exactly. But she makes it seem like I'm, running the show.
Like a
but
good
she's
woman.
Literally running everything, because I will never do anything if I don't think she's on board with it. Like when I can tell when she's not on board with something, I'm like, all right, you don't want to do that? No. So I check in with her like constantly, but great. It's and you know this, you're probably the same way. Like if you ever feel like your husband is like telling you something to do.
Yeah.
Like if she actually thinks I'm like telling her what to do.
Right.
Like in 2 seconds, it's forget it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is like, no. I can feel like I'm kind of running, because I'm a master planner. Like I'm an obsessive, detailed planner. I have a whiteboard in the kitchen with all the dance schedules, the taekwondo schedules, the football, church, date night. We celebrate date, and we'll get back on that, by the way. Date nights, boom. I have everything to the T written out. I'm a master planner. I love to facilitate, because once your children are at the age where they're doing sports and dance.
Yes,
Jacqueline's in dance 6 days a week, 3 hours a day.
Yep.
So I love doing that. She knows I'm really good at it, and I love doing it. So that's fine. Yeah. But if it ever seems like I'm actually telling her what to do, like for 1 second, it's, oh my gosh, forget it. It's an explosion.
Oh, that's great.
So other than that, I don't know. She's just the sweetest, most kind, most giving, most loving, most amazing woman that God delivered to me 21 years ago. And to this day, I thank God that she has arrived. And my most proud accomplishment in my life is the fact that I was somehow able to attract that most beautiful human being into my life. That's my most proud accomplishment. Out of the business, the podcast, all this stuff. It's the fact that I attracted Rachel, the sweetest woman on planet Earth, into my life.
And to maintain it for 21
years. Yep. 21 years.
Huge.
We are as solid, if not more solid right now, in every area, spiritually, emotionally, every area of life. Our intimate connection we are literally 21 years in, the closest we've ever been. And an awaken in the last year and a half has brought us even, channeling now God and Christ coming, so it's like crazy. But I love these, because but we have our tiffs, we have our little thing. Right. But made me realize is that, hey, if you're arguing, if you're having tiffs, it's working. That's right. All right, so let's get back to what you had said something about marriages, and we talked about celebrating, right? Celebrating. Yeah. Rachel and I make it a thing to celebrate pretty much every week, if not every other week. And by celebrate, I mean go out on a nice date night. And I talked to Randy about this, by the way. I did. I was I'm in your life for a reason, bro. You're going to design the most incredible date night for Alycia. We're going to get it going.
When was this?
I know.
I can't wait to experience
I'm still working on it. because clearly it hasn't completely happened yet. But I said, we're going to design everything from the car service to the restaurant. She's going to dress up and do her thing with the makeup, like the pageant days.
That's right. Yeah.
So anyway, talk to me about just that, like, because we get so caught up with the businesses, and he's huge in real estate.
Yes.
You've got your business going on. You got your daughter.
Yeah.
So how do you find the time? What do you do when you're intentional about having some time for yourselves? What do you guys do?
Yeah. So we've found it has to be on the calendar.
Okay.
We both are, because of the nature of our management styles and being CEOs and things like that, we really do whatever's on our calendar. If it's on the calendar, it happens. If it's not, it doesn't happen. When our daughter was first born, of course, we never thought that it would be as hard as it was to. It was pretty hard on me, and I'm sure a lot of it was because I wasn't around a lot of babies and even a lot of children, so I had no idea what to expect, and I just assumed it would be great because that's often what you just hear. But it was very difficult, and it was hard to like manage everything. It was hard to have the business. I just didn't know how to. I had to find a nanny. And it was like all these new things, and so a lot of the things that we had previously had in place naturally fell off. There was no calendar. I couldn't have a calendar because I was like, I'm just trying to like stay alive right now and like figure things out. And so we got away from a lot of the things that were part of, the weekly date night, and we would have a business meeting. Like it was like basically like an executive meeting between the two of us that we would just talk about all the stuff that needs discussed, so like trips that were going to be coming up, and did you do this and did you do that, and hey, how about like how are we doing with the groceries? Are there any new groceries you want me to like weave into the mix, and any meal that you haven't had in a long time that you're like craving again, like just all the things that were that we each shared in different roles. We would do that regularly. We stopped doing that because we were just trying to like get through the days, And so, and it lasted for way too long that neither one of us, mostly because neither one of us wanted to do it. We didn't want to see the other person for so long. We were like, oh, this is just like, we're just trying to like get through. Like I have so much to do. You have so much to do. Like we just wanted to just get through the day. And so neither one of us were really like, hey, remember how we used to like regularly meet for this and this and this? It wasn't happening. So, it would kind of like happen at random. Like it'd be like, oh, hey, by the way, we need to get a gift for so-and-so. And oh yeah, okay, let's figure that out, But it wasn't anything that was like happening. So balls got dropped left and right everywhere. So when we started seeing Dr. Brian, of course, we were reminded I think it was even right before we started seeing him. We were trying to fix stuff on our own. But there was a wound and we were unclear what this dance was that we were doing. And so the wound kept getting reopened and re-exposed just because it hadn't healed yet. It was like we hadn't really been able to deal with that. And so it was like this brokenness that we were trying to like do all the other things. Let's go on a date night. Let's do this. Let's do this. And it wasn't, but we hadn't healed the thing yet, So anyway, Dr. Brian helped us kind of heal that thing and get back to, hey, here's the stuff. And we know that, there's seasons for things. He and I are he is actually extremely consistent and like very much like if he says he's doing a thing, it will get done. I'm more of like an ocean wave. Like I might change my mind and decide we're going to go somewhere different today, so it was different for us to navigate that because I was easily able to just say, and as a new mom, I didn't want to leave the baby. And even leaving the baby, it's kind of like you got to make a big list and you got to have all these things prepared. It was like so much extra work to even like go away for the evening. So there was like a lot that we were trying to navigate, and I think we now have that experience. And so we have a little bit of a better grip. Right. So when the next baby comes, we'll be able to create a better plan, I think, of like how do we want this to really play out? Best case scenario. And then worst case scenario, what are the things that we want to make sure don't fall off the face of the planet? Like I'm okay with if we miss a date night for a month. Yeah. Like that's okay as long as we're still feeling connected in other areas, you know? So, so I don't know. Did I answer the question? I can't remember what the question was.
No, this is good. So we're going to, now speaking of new baby, what are you going to do differently coming into this one? Like coming into this one, by the way, does your bed elevate like zero gravity and all that stuff?
We used to have one like that, but no, not this one that we have now. But that's
Is it a king? Is it a king?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so here's what you need to do for the next one. because I when you were on the couch, I was like horrified.
I know, me too.
Get a split king, which each one goes up and down independently.
That's good.
That's what Rachel and I got before baby number 2.
Oh, that's good.
And it was the most incredible thing because then she was able to elevate, feed, bring down, bada bing, bada boom.
good.
Daddy's over here sleeping, right?
Yep.
You're still in the same bed.
Yep. Yeah. That's
So anyway,
great.
that was huge for us, baby. By the way, zero gravity, ladies and gentlemen, real deal sleep. This is zero gravity, dual activated mattress with massage feature too. By the way,
Excellent.
My point
and
is,
so it has a frame underneath it.
Yeah.
It's the movable piece
Correct,
of it.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's like a memory foam on the top.
is whatever you want.
Oh,
I've got
that's great, 'cause I love memory foam.
Whatever you
Okay.
want on top, memory foam or latex. Latex is my
Okay.
best right now. That's
Oh,
that's the
okay.
softest, most pressure relieving, but supportive. Yeah.
Okay.
It's the number 1 rated bed basically in the industry right now. So
this is
it's
great.
like you're floating in a cloud with support, which is what you need
That
because that way
is-
your sciatica anything's
Yes,
not going
yes.
to act up. You can get memory foam too. I have that as well. But then you each have your own control. That way for you being able to sit up if you want to when you
Yeah.
feed because that's all you are is a feeding zombie. For the
Yes,
first,
exactly.
Right?
Yes, for months.
You got to get out. You got to go prop up the pillows. You got to sit in a
Yes.
chair. It's a
Oh,
nightmare. But
it
with
is.
her, right? We did just hit a button, sit up, feed, bada bing, bada boom. Anyway, getting back to what was I saying? I got off on a tangent there.
So what are we going to do differently
yeah,
for this
what's
kid? We're
gonna
going to get this bed and this
Okay,
mattress
besides
situation.
dual
Yeah.
operated zero gravity mattress and sleep system, what coming into it, planning between the two of you,
Yeah.
like planning wise,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, like
that's
getting
good.
the plan of attack down. What are you going to do?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. I
Yeah.
think part of it is knowing our strengths. So one of the things that I know Randy is world class at is negotiations.
Yeah.
This dude will negotiate anything.
Yeah.
And he does it. What's beautiful is his integrity is so strong that every negotiation that he does comes from a place of integrity and for a win-win. So he never is doing like dirty negotiations.
Right.
It's always, and what was so great about that, I saw this in both with working with the midwife when he had to negotiate things with her
Yeah.
while she was at our home in the heat of the moment. He handled it so well. Like it's miraculous what he was able to pull off. And then at the hospital is an entire negotiation. Like the entire time you're there, you're constantly like, no, we don't want this. And okay, we'll sign this thing. And no, we don't want that. And they're like, oh, okay. Like it was nonstop. They were trying to kind of like keep us there because they weren't going to release us. And we were going to have to like basically escape the hospital. And if you leave the hospital without a release, sometimes your insurance won't cover the hospital stay.
boy.
So we're like, C-section, that's going to get expensive
Oh, yeah.
if we just like leave. So he had to negotiate this whole and kind of like fight for us to be able to be discharged, So anyway, that is such an incredible, skill set that is necessary, not just in the birthing process, but even in the time after the fact, And I think we didn't use that enough, that skill set that he has to manage and to negotiate a win-win. And instead, I kind of just like let him do what he was doing and I was doing what I was doing, instead of saying like, babe, can you figure out a win-win for both of us right now? Like how can we make this situation good for both of us? Just go. And like let him just like figure it out, And instead I was so like, no, this is how I think it should be, but my brain wasn't functioning. So I shouldn't have been the one figuring that stuff out,
Right.
So I think like understanding, and as you get to know, just like how you were describing Rachel right now, the only way you're able to describe her so deeply is because you know her so deeply.
Right.
And it's the going through the trenches that gets you to know her so well. And so but when you avoid those trenches, you don't really get to know the other person that well. So you kind of want to be in there with them, because you get to know the person, you understand them so much deeper. So that's what I think that now that he and I, we feel like we've been through the trenches, we're able to like understand each other differently. So I think that's going to be trusting one another fully and completely for the areas that we have strengths in. And then also recognizing, going through that experience, I, for the first time had in my life, I never before remember losing all control of my emotions, of my physical body, of my, my thought life. Like I really felt like I had no control over my thought life. Like I really was so sleep deprived. Like I could not think clearly,
Wow.
It was like so bizarre. And so I really needed him to think for me. but I didn't have words to express that. And so the words that I did use didn't adequately do it. I remember one time this was in the early months, after we'd had the baby, we were on our way to the chiropractor. It's like, from our house, it's about 45 minutes to an hour drive to go to see Dr. Matt, and it's totally worth it every single time.
Oh, yeah.
And so on the drive, I had brought a cup of coffee in a mug, just because it was just kind of my habit. I just made it. I put it in the mug, and I walked into the car and sat down with like a hot coffee in my hand. And Randy looked at me and he said, "Hey, do you want me to put that in a to-go cup for you?" And I remember just looking at him, and I was trying to answer the question. Okay, so I have a cup of coffee. It's perfect the way it is, but do I want a to-go cup? Would that be beneficial? And it was like in my head, this whole thing was happening. And just in that moment, he was like, "Honey, hand me your cup. I'm going to put it in a to-go cup, okay?" And I was like, "Okay." Just like, oh my God. It was stuff like that was like so crazy, And we know now that it doesn't need to be that way. It was that way because I was mourning the experience of the birth, I didn't get it the way I wanted it. So that was a, depressed state. So that was happening. My sleep I was not sleeping during the days at all. My mom had visited for a while. So I was like up talking with her all day, and then I was up with the baby all night long. So sleep deprivation was extreme.
Yep.
There were a lot of other habits. I wasn't making healthy meals, and I didn't have language to describe the meals I wanted to eat. So I was eating like chocolate bars a lot. Like during the day, I would be so hungry, and I would just like eat a chocolate bar because I needed the energy because I had no sleep. And it just was like all these things that were happening that were like, I felt out of my control. Obviously, all of these things were within my control. I just didn't have the capacity to be able to manage them. So I know that all that stuff, and I'm like already thinking like, gosh, I can't wait to listen back to this and like take notes about, these are the things I'm going to do different. Like I'm going to have like a meal plan going into it, and like these types of things that I know that it doesn't need to be a horrendous experience, but the first time you do anything, it's not perfect. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. Never. But the very first time you do anything, it's the worst you'll ever do it, And so I'm like, the next time we do it, it's going to be that much better.
Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, never, like it's never perfect. It's never perfectly smooth, but that's okay. That's a part of the journey, and that's kind of attributed to the same thing in life.
Yes.
The more trials and tribulations we go through, the more we grow, the more we learn, especially when we go through it together. Like you said, in the trenches. I love that. My wife and I, Rachel, everybody thinks that I'm just the guy with Real Deal. I'm not. Rachel was in the trenches with me from the first year, for the first the first 10 years of Real Deal's existence. Rachel worked with me 7 days a week. Wow. In the showroom for 5, and then through marketing for the next 5 years. So for 10 years, Rachel helped me build the foundation of Real Deal. Nobody realized that. Everybody thinks Rachel's just the housewife and takes care. Right. Rachel does a million more things than me, but we're in the trenches. So she runs the house, she runs the kids, she runs everything. Wow. She makes all the meals, she does meal prep. Wow. She's like 20 million more things than I do. I just come into the showroom, the business, and I get all the glory.
Yeah.
That's it. So anyway, going back now, let's land the plane on this. All right. Hit me one more time. Hit our viewers and listeners one more time. I want to go back to what you do for a living because it was so relevant and I absolutely love it. Like for people that are listening to this right now and let's go men and women because this pertains to both. Give me the advice. Hit them with some pearls on creating their own. Sum this up one more time because you already did it. You hit some points that you do on your podcast, Win a Pageant podcast, right? And guys, you can tune in. Ladies especially tune in because it's very applicable to every area of your life, not just winning a pageant. Yeah. So hit them one more time on if they're listening right now, go, where do I begin? How do I start on building my own personal brand? Yeah.
So personal brand comes from, as we're describing the trenches and the mountains we climb and these things that we go through in life. And as a coach, I work with adult women because as adults, we have seen life. And when you see life, you can choose to crumble or to gain the wisdom to rise. And the trenches are the only thing anybody even gives a rip about anyway.
That's true.
You know, it's like no one cares about the glory without the trenches. That's the thing that people want to have help in and to have a partner in and to be guided through and out of. And so we don't work with 12-year-olds or 8-year-olds and things, like, because they're not in the trenches. You know, they haven't seen what my 40-year-old women have seen. And so understanding your personal brand is not the positive aspects that it's not the peaks, it's the valleys.
Yeah.
And it's the valleys that how you've managed them or mismanaged them, and the lessons and wisdom that you've gained from that is what ultimately, and the values that you've realized through those moments is ultimately what is one's personal brand. And, you know, in working with pageant women, this is why I love working with adult women, is because we take their life experience, and it's often not the glory moments, it's the valleys. And we say, what have you learned in those valleys? Let's use that to help other people. And that's how they are able to create a passion project. We call it a legacy project that lives beyond them and serves people, you know, forever.
And right now with Pathfinder, they've incorporated a new thing called the Legacy Project.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
they
awesome.
did. This is the first season ever that they have
cool.
a Legacy Project.
Oh, I love
and it's
that.
just that.
Yes.
People are creating their legacy and where they're going to be, 10 years from now, and they're going to do it in the real time.
That's cool.
So do the practical thing to go. What you said was, we're going to start with break down like your values, right? Your core values, or the things that are valuable to you. Start there.
And life experiences.
Life experiences.
Yeah. So we have a journaling exercise that kind of helps you just think, sort of like in the Pathfinder's Apprenticeship, where you do a life map, the peak and the valley. What are the highs and lows of your entire life? What are the things you've experienced in your life? And we ask this question, when of other people who know you, how would they describe you? What's one word when they hear that word, they think of you? What's that word? You know, that other people would say, because your personal brand, you know, it is not what you see yourself as, although you will see yourself as this as well. But your brand is the way other people describe you. And so it's really kind of like a abstract concept. A lot of people want to have like, well, my brand is, and they want to have like a word or something. But it's like, as you described at the beginning about branding, like it's all of these words, and they sort of are like all packaged uniquely in one person. And so your personal brand is how other people describe you. And you can have, you do have some control of how others describe you based on your appearance, your behavior, and your communication. And if you strategically plan, what do I want to appear as? How do I want to behave in these circumstances? And how am I going to communicate about the things that are important to me and the things that I loathe? How am I going to communicate that and stand firmly on it? That is what makes up how other people describe you. And that's why your personal brand can shift and change. You know, we've seen a lot of great artists that will do that. You know, Madonna, who had a completely different brand when she first got on the scene. You know, Britney Spears has gone through so many different brands in her life, like, you know, and it's all because of how others see that person. That person is still the same person, just with new life experiences.
So how do you avoid the ego thing? You know what I mean? Because we're all living through the eyes of other peers. Most of us live through the eyes of our peers our entire life, of how we think that we're being viewed.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to get that, because we can go deep on this one.
I know.
But it came to me all of a sudden. It came to me. You're 10:08.
Oh, okay. So I'll quickly kind of share what I
but it came
think
to me,
about
so
ego, because it comes up in pageantry as well. So the difference between confidence that is one that serves and the confidence that is self-serving is the two main things that I think that will influence that. It's the source that your confidence comes from. So where does your confidence come? Does it come from the material things around you or your own personal, life existence, things like that? So where does it come from? And second, the voices that you listen to. So if the voices that you listen to are your peers and your community and stuff, and those people are not positive, or they are not encouraging, or they're not calling out the things that you need to shift, then you're in trouble. So that's why surrounding yourself with the right community of people that actually, and allowing voice to the people that can give you correction is so important. So important. And then the source, where's this coming from? When I first got pregnant, I lost what I felt was like a beautiful body. I was like a size 2. I was like hot looking and it like had like ripped arms and stuff because I was so lean. And then I became pregnant and it was like everything started shifting. My ribs got wider, my hips got wider. It was like all these things, nothing fit me anymore. It was like my whole style had to change. It was like, I was so confused about who is this person in the mirror? And in that moment, I realized, wow, I'm putting a lot of confidence in my physical appearance. And that is destructive. Like that is extremely destructive to place so much confidence in a thing that is truly going to change consistently throughout my lifetime. And so instead, the only place that you can get consistent confidence from, the only source that will never change, that will always be the same, that no matter where you are in your life, the only source of that is God himself. And the way that you can get access to God is through reading your Bible, because it's words that were inspired by him, written by men, but inspired by God. So it's his heart. You get to know who he is, and you get to understand, like the more time you spend with somebody, like we described with our spouses, the more time you spend, the more you ask them how they feel, the more you get to understand them deeper. And so this is how we understand God, through the Bible and through prayer. Both listening and speaking, like speaking prayers that are on your heart, but also listening to what God has to say to you in those moments. That is the only source that will never change. You will always get the same feedback from, and it will always be positive. It will always be for you. It will never be against you. That's where your source of confidence needs to come from. And if you have that confidence, and if you have people in your life who are willing to correct you, then I think the ego will naturally there will be no room for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, that sums it up right there. I just got goosebumps. That was such a good ending right there. I'm going to end. I want to go further because I have more questions, but that was beautiful. The source, God. What I realized is, because I read a passage to my daughter every night, I'm getting there. I'm learning the Jesus thing. I'm breaking the Bible open a little bit. I'm getting there.
Great.
But I'm realizing that he loves me no matter what. My Heavenly Father, I didn't have a father. A physical father. Obviously I did, but what I'm saying is he wasn't existent in my life. But I have a Heavenly Father that loves me no matter what.
100%.
And believes in me and has designed me in a certain way to do a certain thing, right?
Yes.
And I love that.
Will challenge you and will push you and will ask you to step up to the bar.
Yep.
Not going to let you, my earthly father was like, we don't get B's in this house. We get straight A's.
Yeah.
So you don't go to the volleyball game if you come home with a B. You got to focus, And that type of standard, it raises the bar. And that's what God does for us. He challenges us to say, no, that's not who you are.
Right.
This is who you are. Step up to the plate.
That's not who I designed you to be.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And then, like you said, most importantly, who you're surrounding yourself with, community. I can't awaken church. We could go on a whole podcast on that alone.
I know.
So if you're in San Diego and you want this type of surrounding, come to Awaken. Just come to one service, and if it feels good, which it probably will, if it doesn't, no big deal. My point is, who you're surrounding yourself with is the most important thing in your life on where you're going. This was great.
This was great. Yeah.
Alycia Zymnoch.
Oh.
I love saying that name.
Hey, JD, before we close, I just want to honor you for a moment because having only known you for just a short time, but seeing your involvement, and as you said, like, I'm still getting to know this whole Christian walk, and what does this even mean, and how do I even do this? And it's been so cool watching you come to Awaken, get plugged in. And I remember I first started hearing just JD when I was attending Dr. Matt. We would be at Dr. Matt's several times a week, and JD, and then you had the massage chairs there that you sell, and like, oh man, those are the best. And it was just so cool that your reputation preceded you. And so then when I met you, I was like, no wonder, like, this guy is so for people and so encouraging and so willing and interested in raising other people up. Like you mentioned, you're helping some gals at the church that are working on their personal branding. Like, this is who you are, is somebody who wants to lift everybody, and it's so cool to have experienced that in your reputation alone first, then having met you and to see you just engaging, and going all in and being like, what, I'm going to serve in a team. I'm going to be there every Tuesday night. I'm going to do all the things. I'm going to show up and get to know the people. It's so awesome just to see how your personality, your skill sets and everything, and and also just your reputation preceding you in such a beautiful way and like an authentic way. It's encouraging. And I'm just so grateful that you're a part of our community because it's going to increase everybody around us, you know? So it's awesome. So thank you for what you do.
That's amazing. Did I say we were out of time? I think we have more time for that. You want to keep going? No, that was thank you. Seriously, I'm like so humbled to even hear words like that. And ladies and gentlemen, this means so much to me that people are even listening and watching and telling me about it, because all I want to do is design this to give other people a voice, and also voice that other people can be inspired by and learn from. So your podcast today, this interview has been, I can't wait to get the feedback on this one. So many women, even probably men, that, you know, the things you said about your podcast, this has been amazing. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it greatly. And it's my pleasure, believe me.
Well, thanks for having me on today.
Oh, thank you for coming in. It's been an honor. Alycia Zymnoch, Real Deal Talk. That's a wrap, baby. We're out. Let's go.